Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another night of Mastermind Academy. I think this is, week 6? I put it in the tweet somewhere. This is week 6 or 7. This is week 6. Welcome to week 6 of Mastermind Academy. Tonight, we've got some cool stuff in store. Tonight, we're going to be learning a little bit about web servers and web traffic management. This is going to be a lot of what you're going to be doing on the job. So tonight's going to be pretty cool. How's everyone's night going first? Unlike last time, tonight I got in, at a reasonable time. I didn't get in 10 minutes before the stream, so I'm not rushing as much as I was last time. So it feels pretty good. It feels a lot better than it does last time. Updates. So I got some cool stuff. I wanted to be able to get it out before this stream. Actually, I've been so busy at work that I haven't been able to do some of the stuff I want to do, but I don't know how many of you are familiar with first a YouTube update. I was supposed to be putting out dropping YouTube videos every Friday. I still intend to do that. I actually plan on doing it every Friday and every Tuesday. I actually I have a couple that I've recorded. I released the first one. I've recorded some new ones, but I didn't like the quality of the webcam that I'm using. The webcam that I'm using is great for the stream, but it wasn't so good for the videos. I really didn't like the quality of the last one. So I picked up some camera gear. I didn't know how expensive camera gear was, and I also didn't know how diverse camera gear is. Pretty crazy. Went to a camera store, got some info. So I picked up some stuff. So I'm learning how to use that stuff now. I've got a video in progress. I'm re-recording one of the videos, just because I'm kind of big on the quality of those, so I want those to be good. So expect a video this Friday, and again, expect them at least weekly for the YouTube videos. But I'm also going to be using that camera for the stream as well, so the stream quality will go up just a bit in that area. I also picked up an iPad to use as a whiteboard. There's been some time so far where it'd been really good if I could have just whiteboarded out for you all, kind of some diagrams or some data flow models or something. So I'll be using that. I tried to get that up and running for this stream, but I just picked it up yesterday. I didn't have time to get it running. I actually have a giant whiteboard sitting right next to me, but I couldn't figure out how to get the lighting right. There's a lot of glare on it with the lights in the room, so I couldn't get a good recording of it. Maybe if I test out the new camera, maybe I can put the new camera on it, maybe use the real whiteboard. But I do have an iPad that I'm going to be using to do some cool whiteboard stuff, or to draw out some things when we need to get some things drawn out, which I think will help be able to talk through some of the more complex topics that we're going to be talking about. But yeah, welcome everyone. Let me know if you guys got any updates. Usually we do a roll call. Let me know where you're watching in from. Let me know if it's your first time hopping on the stream. Also an update, because people have been asking about this, and this is definitely my bad, but getting the streams that have been pulled off of Twitch up onto YouTube. All these streams are recorded. I do have them all. I actually attempted to upload them yesterday. What I did not do was I forgot to remove the first 8-minute intro of just the starting soon stuff. I want to remove those because those are actually, I found out, what are causing me to get copyright flagged. It's just that intro. So I tried to cut them up yesterday where I took them into the office because we have much faster upload speeds in the office than I do at home. I have faster download speeds at home, but Comcast is all you have. This is the only thing you can get in the city, and their upload speeds aren't great. But I couldn't, on my laptop, wasn't powerful enough to cut off the video and re-render the video with a decent amount of time. So I started re-rendering half of those videos today, and I'll try to re-render the second half tonight, and I'll take them into the office tomorrow to get all those uploaded. So I'm really, really sorry about how long that's taking, but I'm pretty sure we figured out what's getting me copyright stricken. So I think the music that's currently playing is actually a Twitch and Chill playlist on Spotify that actually I think it should be all copyright free music. So it should be no big deal. So look for those things tomorrow. Again, we have real fast upload speeds at the office. So I'm gonna take them in tomorrow. I'm sure maybe I'll try to upload some overnight. Maybe I'll try to upload them all overnight and see what happens. But again, my upload speeds here are not great. But cool, 8:04. Let's give people one more minute, to get logged on, get comfortable. Tonight is going to be it's a little information dense. We'll hop on and do some live. We're gonna do some live tutorials that I've kind of just been thinking about in my head currently. I was gonna set up a full kind of thing for this, but we're actually doing a pretty big lab next week that's gonna incorporate a lot of this stuff. So I didn't want to do too much of that this week and take up too much of your time. So we're gonna be doing some stuff on the fly, but we are gonna hop hands-on. We're gonna hop into some servers, set up some cool stuff. Golang has a package that will upload my videos. Just saying, I will check that out. Link that to me. I would actually like to check that out. That might be pretty cool. I definitely want to check that out. I would like to automate. As a DevOps engineer, I want to automate as much of my process as possible. So definitely shoot me over the link for that. But cool. All right, let's get started. Tonight we're doing web servers and web traffic management, and this is going to be a cool one. This one's going to be pretty important because a lot of the DevOps engineer jobs, or what DevOps has kind of spawned from, usually people are going to be wanting you to be that infrastructure engineer or that, that systems administrator who's dealing with the web servers and web portions of, of a business and making sure those things are up and available and scalable and all that stuff. But you need to know how to manage that web traffic, and you need to know how to make sure people's requests can get to the right systems and get pushed to the right places. So this is a very important part of what we're going to be doing. Oh, cool. Thank you for that. Thank you for the link, Shug. I'm going to move that. Let me copy that real quick. Just said I copied that off. I didn't want to lose that. So thank you. Well, cool. I told you this one will be a little bit information dense. I don't like using this many words on a slide. I usually have just a couple words along with a GIF. But I thought this was pretty important. So what is a web server? Web server, pretty important. All this stuff is here to know. Web servers are actually the high level context of them is pretty simple, but they dive a lot deeper. So let's read this. A web server stores and delivers the content for a website. Pretty simple. Those things such as text, images, videos, and application data. To the client that requests it. The client is the person retrieving that data, so your web browser is actually the client. When you're in Google Chrome, when you click and do something, the client refers to you, and really it refers to that web browser that you're using. So a web server, it stores all these things for you to be able to serve and give it to the client after it requests it. The most common type of client is a web browser program, and I just said that. So your web browser is the most common type of client, and that requests data from a website when a user clicks on a link or downloads a document on a page displayed in the browser. Very simple, nothing too complex there. Web server is just, a computer that serves content over the web, over those protocols that we talked about, over HTTP and HTTPS. Next line says that here, a web server communicates with a web browser using Hypertext Transfer Protocol. That's HTTP. Remember, HTTP is port 80. Pretty important, something you don't want to forget. The content of most web pages is encoded in hypertext markup language. So I think we've all heard of HTML and CSS. HTML is the way that the page is structured. CSS is the way that the page is designed. And so that's what, most web content is encoded like that. The content can be static, for example, text and images. So static is something that doesn't change. It's kind of set in stone. It doesn't change at all. Or dynamic. So this is something that might change. For example, a computed price of a list of items a customer has marked for purchase. So sometimes you just want to deliver static content. So like the website that you see when you go to mastermind.io/curriculums, and you want to find out about this course. That is a static website. There's nothing dynamic that happens there. It doesn't take in any information, doesn't do any calculations. It provides to you HTML, which gives you information about that website and about this course. Sometimes, though, you may need to do something like, let's say you have a shopping cart or something that needs to, calculate what your total is. So this is dynamic. This is something that can change. This is something that needs to be calculated. So a web server can do both of these things. It can, deliver the static stuff. It can also deliver this dynamic stuff. To deliver dynamic content, most web servers support server-side scripting languages to encode business logic into the communication. Commonly supported languages include active server pages, JavaScript, PHP, Python, and Ruby. All that means is that you can use these server-side scripting languages for to be able to create this dynamic content. Very simple. This is the applications that you check out every day. It's just written in a language that can also be used to deliver content over HTTP and HTTPS. But no big deal here. So basically, a web server is just something that's going to deliver you web content over the web, and not just any client that wants it. So not even your web browser is not the only client. It's the main and most common type of client, but you might also have other servers that might be the client. You might have other machines that may be requesting this data. So that's all a web server is. Not too complicated. Cool. So let me check out the chat. Someone who has no DevOps experience with 10 years of IT background, should I keep following the stream or look at previous streams first? So I think it's completely fine if you, that's a great question. Was that Fizz? This stream will be, the concepts of this stream will be independent of most of the things that we've done so far. But watching me implement these things, I'm going to be building off a lot of things that we built upon before. So this stream will be covering a lot of Linux stuff. I used to do a lot of Linux commands. But for the most part, I think you should be able to understand the concepts of what web servers are, and kind of how we kind of set them up, independently of anything that we've gone over so far. So I think you can watch this no problem, and be able to get something good out of it. And something I harped on since the beginning was that I wanted you to understand, I want everyone to understand and take away the concepts and not so much worry about the intricacies of how we're implementing something. Don't worry about the syntax so much. Watch it, see, try to replicate it if you can, but understand the high level concepts. I want you to understand what a web server is. We'll implement some stuff with Nginx and Apache later. I want you to understand you can do these things. I can host multiple websites from a server using virtual hosts here and all this stuff, all these different things I'm going to teach you tonight. I want you to understand the high level concepts rather than the intricate implementation of them. Well, cool. Yeah. All right. So next one. So here are some common web servers. There are many more than this. These are some of the most common ones. Apache is the most common. This is the biggest one. This is, and actually let's hit all these websites real time. There's no reason why we can't do that. So Apache. And so this is an open source server. This was created in 95. I want to say this is one of the oldest. It's open source software. I think there's a better site for this. But yeah, this is something that you'll commonly see Apache here. You can download it for free. It's commonly referred to as HTTPD. That is the name of the process that actually runs on the server. That's the name of the daemon that runs. So we'll check out some of that a little bit later. But this is probably the biggest web server. I'm confident that this is the largest web server, one of the most heavily used web servers out there. So you should be familiar with Apache. Know what it is. You don't necessarily need to know how to use it yet. What else do we have? So we have Nginx. This is the one we're going to use tonight. Nginx is much newer. I think it's 10 years newer than Apache is. It was built for the changes in web infrastructure and the way technology kind of migrated. We'll talk about some of the benefits of it, but a lot of people are using it nowadays because of what it's built for kind of modern applications. So Nginx, and you'll see here when we hit the website, it'll probably look newer, a little bit nicer. They also have, paid versions of this. So it's not only open source. They do have an open source free version, but they do have something you can pay for as well. You get support and things like that. Apache Tomcat. So the first two are kind of general web servers that kind of run directly on a Linux machine. Apache Tomcat is for Java. It's a Java, was it servlet or something like that, or Java applet. But Tomcat is a common one that you'll use in conjunction with Java applications. I think you can use it to do other things, but most people mainly use it for Java. I don't think it's Java only. It might be only Java only. Not 100% sure, but Apache Tomcat is something you might run into on Windows servers. This is, again, exclusive to Windows servers. It's Microsoft IIS. I don't know what IIS stands for. Let's see. Microsoft IIS. It's probably Internet Okay, information services. Yeah, so IIS is just Microsoft's implementation that runs on Microsoft Server. Pretty simple program. It has a lot of the same features, but it has a lot of the common features that you would want out of a web server. I do think it's lacking in some places, at least the last time I was using it. But if you're using a Windows server, this is an option that will be available to you out of the box. It's important to note that Nginx and I believe Apache can also be installed on Windows servers, so you do have other options. But just want to throw it out there for something you should be familiar with. Why did it sign me out? Where were we at? Let's see. Okay, cool. So there are a bunch of others. So things like Node.js. If you're learning JavaScript in Node.js, it has its own web server called Express. There's a package called Express that you can use that runs things. There's Ruby on Rails has its own server that you can deploy that kind of serves this content. But they all come with varying levels of tooling, various levels of options, and functionality. Again, there's a lot of them, just like all the other tools. At the very beginning, we talked about how DevOps is a cultural change that's enabled by the tooling. So there are tons of tools out here. We're going to focus on one tonight to make it a little bit easier. We're going to be focusing on Nginx, but we're also going to do some stuff with Apache tonight as well. So we talked about what web servers are. And I think we're going to go through everything first before we get hands-on, so it's not confusing, so we can kind of stay in one place at a time. So next thing, load balancing. And tonight is about being able to manage web traffic and control it. You want to be that air traffic controller, but for web requests. And so load balancing is one of the ways that enables you to be able to have some control over what happens with web requests. So load balancing, what is it? In computing, load balancing improves the distribution of workloads across multiple computing resources, such as computers, a computer cluster, network links, central processing units, or disk. All that means is so that a system doesn't get overloaded. Load balancing takes, it takes a central stream of traffic. Everything's coming through here, and it takes it and it routes it to either multiple computers. Maybe I have 5 servers in the background that'll be available and serving my content. So I'll make sure that all of those get even amount of connections, so that one server doesn't get overloaded, or maybe one of my computers is more powerful than the other one. So maybe I want to weight that and I want to send most of my connections to computer 1 and then trail off, with computer 2, 3, and 4. You have that option. So it's making sure that you can take all of the load that you have, the load being, that influx of traffic, and make sure you can handle it properly, and making sure that no one computer or one set of computers or computer cluster is getting overloaded. So load balancing is one of those cool ways you can do that. And here's kind of an infographic of what I was just talking about. You can see everyone over here. All the inbound traffic is coming into your systems. Going straight, you can see the arrow here, and your load balancer sits right here. Load balancer can be software. Load balancer can be hardware. We're going to be dealing with software most of the time. Tonight, especially, we're going to be dealing with some software. I think, off the top of my head, I think I have a cool demo we can do with that. But your load balancer will take that. It'll determine the best place for it. So maybe my site is actually hosted on all 3 of these servers back here. You can see these are the servers down here, and it'll split off that traffic depending on whatever rules we gave it. Again, there are multiple different types of load balancing paradigms. You can do, equally distributed. So, all of these servers get the same amount of traffic. You can do round robin. And so no matter what, it'll just go to the next server in line. It'll just keep going through no matter how many connections are actually on there. You can have one that's weighted. So maybe, again, this server up here, server 1 is a little more powerful than the other 2. So maybe I'll send 40% of traffic to this one and 30 to this one and 30 to this one. So, something like that. You have your options to kind of do that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Load balancing is pretty important. When we get into the cloud computing portion, and I think next week we start some cloud computing, we'll hop straight into this. It's really easy out of the box with cloud computing, but there's also some options to do it through software like Nginx or Apache. So cool, really quick there. Let's talk about proxies now. So if you ever went to, whenever you went to school, especially if you were in public school, they probably had some computers. They probably blocked you from going to all the cool websites you want to go to, all the video sites that you want to go to, eBombs World, and there was a bunch of stuff, at least during my time, that you might want to go to that had all the cool stuff on it that you couldn't get to. Proxies would allow you to do that sometimes. But what is a proxy? Proxies aren't crazy special. A proxy is simply a server that acts as a gateway between you and the internet. Pretty simple. It's an intermediary server separating end users from the websites they browse. So this is the middleman. Proxy is the middleman, and it's got some rules and some features to be able to manage the traffic that you're sending through it. Proxy servers provide varying levels of functionality, security, and privacy depending on your use case, needs, and company policy. So, you might see, so the reason this worked when you were, going to school, the reason you were able to get to these sites that you couldn't get to is because instead of your computer making that request, your computer is now making a request to that proxy. And that proxy says, all right, so when that request goes out, all the policies that the person running your system set up in your school system, those policies don't match the request going out to the proxy. So when your request goes out, it says, hey, this is safe. This is not on my do not go to list. And that proxy would go get that information. It would be the middleman. It would go get that information and deliver it back to you. So that was a little workaround. There are two types of proxies, forward proxies and reverse proxies. Don't worry about this too much. Forward proxies essentially are kind of used by the client. So remember, we talked about the client being you and that browser. It's basically used by the browser to kind of go out and get data. And reverse proxies are kind of the opposite and are used by the servers. And we're going to set up, if we have time, we're going to set up a quick reverse proxy using Nginx tonight. Cool. Are we going to Newgrounds next? Yes. All those sites, Newgrounds, eBombs World, you go there and get your soundboards, watch your videos you probably weren't supposed to be watching, play your games. Newgrounds was great for all the games as well. Keep throwing out the old sites. I forgot a lot of the ones that I used to go to. Definitely Newgrounds and eBombs World were kind of the two big ones where, at least for me, I probably wasn't supposed to be on there, but they were entertaining and I could get there. Cool. So, third billing cycle asks, how are proxies different from load balancers? That's a great question. Proxies don't have logic. Well, they're not intended to have logic to determine the weighting and the distribution of your connections. Basically, proxies kind of have a endpoint, a pool that requests can get into. And again, they're only acting as an intermediary to kind of handle those requests. And again, there's some logic you can do inside of proxies, but they're not designed to manage that traffic in the same way. Usually they're used to either modify requests or to hide requests, or to be able to shift requests to somewhere else pretty quickly, especially with a reverse proxy. And maybe you'll see it, maybe it'll be a little easier to understand as we get hands on with it. And this is kind of a infographic on kind of how that works. So just like I said, so Alice, this is the client, is making a request to Bob, and basically it says, hey, ask Bob what the current time is. So again, imagine if you're Alice, you're the kid at school wanting to go to eBombs World, and you set up this proxy. I think there's a few out there, where you're using the proxy and you're saying, hey proxy, tell me what's on eBombs World. And it reaches out to eBombs World and it says, hey, what do you got? And then it goes through and it passes it right back to your computer. Again, using this middleman intermediary server. Again, you can use this server for a lot of things. You can modify the request. You can do a lot of things with this proxy, but it's just a middleman to be able to handle requests and modify requests. There's a lot of things you can do with it, but it's a pretty, proxies are fairly simple. So the way it was just described, it sounds like it might be the other way around. A load balancer, it's kind of like a switch. Proxy is like a load balancer. Would I call it a switch? I guess. I think they're different. I do think it might be closer to a switch. than it would be to a router. I mean, because a router doesn't care. A router, splits that traffic, but a router doesn't really care who's getting the most traffic per se. I don't know. That's a tough one. I would think about it a little bit further. I've never kind of compared the two. I'm not even sure that they're comparable in what they do. But again, we'll get kind of hands-on with it. And I think you'll be able to understand it a little bit better. Cool. And I think this is the last one. Yeah, this is the last thing. This is the last big thing we're gonna talk about is firewalls. So firewall is a network security device that monitors incoming and outgoing network traffic and decides whether or not to allow or block the specific traffic based on a defined set of security rules. So all this is a gate. Obviously you can see this dog is going straight through the gate, so we have poorly defined rules, or our rules are saying, hey, if the dog comes through, let it through. But again, this is your kind of first line of defense for security. Firewalls are pretty simple applications, and basically you define a set of rules. You say, hey, I'm okay with requests coming from this site or coming from this IP address or not coming from this IP address. I'm okay with people accessing this computer over this port, but not over these ports. And a firewall will do that initial checking and make decisions based on that and either allow or deny requests to your server. So we're going to hop into a very simple firewall called IP tables. IP tables is not actually a firewall. It's kind of a shell control layer for the Linux kernel firewall, but we'll check it out. IP tables is something that exists on pretty much all Linux systems. Not a lot of people use it anymore. When we get into the firewalls will become important as soon as we hop into the cloud computing stuff, because there's a lot of upfront firewalls and setup you have to do for AWS, but it's important just to understand what a firewall is at a high level. But cool, that's all there is for slides. So we got through the first half an hour, all slides. Hopefully we can fill the rest of the time with some cool demos. Tonight I'm gonna do a lot of Googling and following through tutorials, so that you can kind of see how you would go about reading through a tutorial or finding the information that you would need, and go about and see how I follow tutorials, see what it seems like you can copy and paste, see what you can't. I just want to kind of do it how you might want to do it. So we'll talk about the topics. I'll lead everyone in the right direction, but we'll do a lot of Googling and we'll pull a lot of information from the internet. So what we're going to do is, what was the first thing we had? First thing with web servers. We're going to start up a server really quick. I'm going to hop onto AWS. I'm going to use Lightsail again because that's the simplest. And we haven't got into the other stuff. I don't want to confuse you with all the extras that come with spinning up an EC2 instance, etc. But we'll get some of the stuff installed, show you how easy it is to install, talk about the workflow of them, talk about kind of what makes them good. We're only going to do Apache and Nginx, and mostly we're going to focus on Nginx, but we'll also be able to see how similar at its core it is to set up things with Apache and Nginx. And then we'll hop through, we'll do some load balancing, we'll spin up some extra servers, and we'll install some websites on them, and we'll use a lot of the things that we talked about before. So you'll see me use my host file because I don't have any domains for these things, but I want to be able to get to them via domain name, and we'll install some sites on them, and we'll, check out how we could load balance between different servers, and we'll do some proxying, and we'll work on some firewalls. So cool. Does anyone have any questions before we get started? Proxy kind of like VPN. There's a computer tunnel. That's true. That is true for sure. Man, I'm trying to think about a good way to describe it. Usually I'm great with analogies. This was kind of tough. But cool. Let me get logged into Amazon really quick, and we can go ahead and get started. You could follow along with this if you were using DigitalOcean or something. You could also do that, finding that site. Whoops. I'll just Google it because I never remember the URL. But we're gonna maybe I'll spin up 4 today, and we'll get signed in. So yes, you can follow along. you'll be able to follow along, even if you have Nginx installed locally, you'll absolutely be able to follow along. The only thing you won't be able to do is demo some of the load balancing stuff. You can still set up the rules and things like that, but you won't be able to quite test it. But yes, you can follow along with a local instance of Nginx. Let me get my two-factor auth code in here. Wait till the next one goes. There we go. Whoa. Hold on, I answered that wrong. Oh, sure did. That is the wrong one. I have too many authentication codes nowadays in my Google Authenticator. I've got like 7. Kind of sucks. Some are for work, some are for some other things. If you can, I got this cool thing called one of my coworkers gave me a tool called a YubiKey, where I can kind of plug it in straight into my USB port. And for anything that takes two-factor authentication, so for anything that asks you for a code or wants a token as authentication along with your password, you can kind of just press it in your USB stick, in your USB slot, and it'll log you in, which is pretty nice. Only thing that sucks about it is I can only use it for my work computer because it takes up a USB port and it stays in there. So I got the little nano one, but I would check out a YubiKey if you are, especially if you're pretty security conscious. They're pretty cool to have. But cool. All right, so I'm in AWS. I'm gonna go to Lightsail. Lightsail is just a VPS service, so a virtual private server. So if you just want to rent a little bit of server space, if you're not super familiar with cloud computing or AWS, I highly recommend using this service called Lightsail. You can just Google Lightsail, and that will, it'll take you to here, and it's a lot easier to manage than something like an EC2 instance, which we'll go over in a week or so. But so Lightsail, very easy. I can spin up servers kind of at will here. So I'm actually going to set up 4 servers right now. So I'm going to set up all 4 at once just so I can be done with that. OS only, and we've been doing everything with Ubuntu. So we'll continue along doing everything with Ubuntu. I want the operating system only. You can do cool stuff like this and just install Nginx easily for you, but I'm going to do OS only because we want to go through it ourselves and learn how to do this. Don't need any launch script. That key pair should be downloaded locally. And before I do anything, let me make sure it's downloaded locally. Let's make sure I know where that key is at. Did I move it? All right, cool. It's there. I'm going to move it actually I'll move it into documents. Make sure that key is there. All right, we need this key to get logged into our server. So I just want to make sure it's available to me, because if I didn't have it, then we wouldn't be able to log in. So I'm going to set up this one. This is all I need. I don't need, actually, I'm going to give them names so we know what this is. So I'm going to say stream Nginx. Whoops. All right, this is our stream Nginx server. So I'm going to create an instance. You did not make it on time, but you weren't far behind. And again, you can always go back and watch it, at least for the first 2 weeks. But you're good. You made enough time to see all the cool stuff. Cool. So I got the first server. So that's spinning up now. We'll go ahead and create the rest of them. So I'm going to set up a single. Actually, I'll wait to set up the web servers. I'm going to set up the single Nginx server first, and we'll do some stuff on here to show you that a web server is not separate. This Nginx server doesn't need to be separate from anything. We can host everything off of this machine. So let's do that first, and then we'll spin up the other servers once we get to them. All right, cool. Let's get logged. Let's copy this. Let's go ahead and get logged in. It's running. All right. So remember, everything in Amazon has to be cannot be accessed without a key. So I need to SSH into it. SSHing is how we remotely log into a Linux machine. Don't forget that. And then the user, I think it was Ubuntu. I think this feels right. All right, I'm all logged in. All logged into this server. Gives me some information, says I'm logged in. I can also confirm that I'm logged in because this was my prompt for my local computer. And now you can see here, it's my user at the computer name, which is the server. So cool. Let's do the first thing that most people should do. Actually, it says no packages, no security updates are available. So I don't think we need to update anything. That is excellent. So let's go ahead and get Nginx installed first. And maybe I know how to install Nginx, but if you didn't know how to install Nginx and you walked into a job and they said, hey, I need a server with Nginx installed and we need a web server, can you go do that for me? What would you do? If you had no idea, you go to your command line, and if you knew you wanted to use Nginx, you'd say, how do I install Nginx on Ubuntu? You don't have to type in this part, but again, there are multiple operating systems this can be installed on. So go ahead, feel free, get comfortable Googling. It is okay to Google these things. Not a big deal. You should Google these things. So let's click on the first one. This one's perfect. It says how to install Nginx on Ubuntu 18.04. That is what we are using. So I can go through and I can read this quick start. So as you start to Google more and more, you'll start to know some of the common sites that you can be comfortable looking through, and might have the right answers for you. So DigitalOcean actually has a lot of great knowledge-based articles about how to do different things. So DigitalOcean is usually a good one. Stack Overflow is something you'll come across a lot. There's some good stuff on Quora. There's some good stuff all around, but you'll learn, the more and more you Google, the better you'll be at finding this stuff. So let's find the first one we can find. Pretty simple. Now, I used to go through and read all this stuff. I actually do think you should go through and you should read this stuff. It provides a lot of information for you in the beginning, but after after a little while, after you start getting more familiar with what you're trying to accomplish, this stuff gets really easy to parse through, and your mind automatically goes and picks out the code that you want to find. Usually these walkthroughs, usually these tutorials will have the commands and code that you need highlighted or in its own little code block so you can tell. But yeah, I'm gonna go straight to step one. Unless you know some prerequisites here, we've already got our server. So let's get this installed. So first it wants us to update. I'll run it because it says so. The first time you go through and do this, you might go like this. You might go through and you might try to copy the whole thing. This is a great website because it doesn't allow me to copy the prompt item here, which is really nice. The $ is something you don't want to copy, but your first time through, you might not know that, and you would go ahead and copy that and you would paste it in and it wouldn't work. But yeah, that's what the fun of getting comfortable with going through these tutorials is. So everything usually is going to have a Linux prompt item, so you don't want to copy that thing. You want to start from the first command, and we'll go ahead and we'll just copy and paste that straight into what we're doing. So I'll go ahead and run that. I'll let it run its updates. While I do that, let's see. Doug, thanks for welcoming all the new people. Yes, so that is yeasty goodness. Absolutely, most people are Googling around. I Google every single day. I spend a lot of time Googling. I do have a good handle on a lot of things that I'm doing, but you can't know all this stuff. You can't memorize all this stuff. There's no way you can have done all of these things. So Google is your friend. And I really want people to understand Googling is okay. You should be doing it. And the more and more you Google, the better you'll start to learn how to parse through all the crap, all the cruft. And I think that's what separates, your problem solving skills, the amount of things you've seen, and your ability to kind of, wade through all the cruft out there on the internet, and being able to pinpoint things that are valuable to you, through web searches, is what makes you good, to be 100% honest. So I think that's a great piece of insight. Cool. So we did the update. So that ran successfully. You want to run a command, make sure it completed successfully. And then we can go to the next one. So the first one, it says update your local package index. We went through and did that. We learned about that on the Linux live stream. So all we got to do now is install Nginx. Very simple. We're going to be using this package manager to install Nginx. Paste it in. All right, cool. It runs through. It says, hey, I'm going to be installing these new tools as dependencies. Do you want to go ahead and continue? It's going to take up this much disk space. I'm going to hit Y, so continue, and it's going to install. You can also, if there's something you're installing and you know you want to install it, or if you like, let's say you're scripting, remember how we were doing the scripting lab? If you want to be able to do that programmatically, you can always just add a -Y, and that will answer yes to any prompt that comes through to you, which is really nice. You know, it helps you to be able to do things programmatically and kind of on the fly without having to intervene. But cool, Nginx is installed, or it should be according to this article. Now, this is great. I actually didn't expect to see this, and I'm actually glad this is in here. We're talking about web traffic. We're talking about firewalls here. So, by default, now, I don't know. I haven't used UFW very much, but I know this is a firewall that is, I think, relatively new to Ubuntu. I think they implemented it in 16.04. So we're one long-term support version past that. This firewall needs to be adjusted. So it seems as though by default, this firewall is set up to not allow applications to use HTTP and HTTPS. These are the protocols that we need. So we're going to have to adjust this firewall. So this is great. Remember, this firewall is that first line of defense. You define some rules that says, hey, this is who's in, this is who's out. It's just like the VIP list of the club. Some people are allowed to get in, some people get turned away at the door, and that's exactly what a firewall is. You define those rules, and it allows them or doesn't allow them. So it looks like we're using a firewall application called UFW. I don't know what that means. I'm gonna guess before I check, and I'm gonna say it is the Ubuntu firewall. We'll find out very shortly. But let's go ahead and copy this, and it looks like this is going to check the available UFW application profiles with the following command. So let's go ahead and paste that in. All right, available applications: Nginx Full, Nginx HTTP, Nginx HTTPS, and OpenSSH. Now, I'm not familiar with UFW. That's actually why this is great. I'm actually glad I went through and did it this way and didn't just show you what I knew, because I'm learning something new as well. So you can see me going through one of these tutorials. So here they let you know what your output should be. Our output looks exactly like this. So actually, let's put these side by side so that we can run through and compare them a little bit better. And maybe, all right, cool. So I'll make this a little larger. All right, so let's enable the most restrictive profile that will still allow the traffic you've configured, permitting traffic on port 80. So firewalls are intended for security. In today's world, you want to be as secure as possible. So it looks like they have some pre-made profiles on here for you that will only allow you to be able to do HTTP for Nginx. So it will only allow traffic over port 80. So it looks like this is an application that's available to us, which is nice. So let's go ahead and try to paste this in and see what we get. All right, lets us know that rules were updated. Rules were updated v6. Now I'm going to assume that means rules were updated for IPv4 and IPv6. I could be completely wrong about that. Just letting you know my thought process and how I'm going to make some assumptions here. Now it says, hey, verify that change. So I'm going to check again with the status. Looks like status is inactive. Cool, but it should be active. It's interesting in here that they don't tell you what you should do to make it active, but cool, not a big deal here. Did I copy updated status? I was just making sure I copied it. Still says inactive. Now, this could be for a lot of reasons. This could be one because it could be configured by Amazon to not use this at all, even though it's something that comes along with Ubuntu 18.04. They do have the ability to modify their images and set things up accordingly. I don't know yet why it says inactive, but maybe I can do something like this. Actually, let's do a UFW -help and see what we can find out. We're using the tools available to us. So maybe I just need to enable it. So it's disabled, it's inactive. Maybe I just need to enable it. So maybe we'll try that. Maybe we'll try that. And I could be breaking everything, but whoops, that is not a command. Oh no, so I'm not going to do this. This is a great tool, and I was wondering about this, and that's why I thought it was interesting, and that might be why it's disabled by default. But the rule that we have in place is basically what they said here. The most restrictive profile that will still allow traffic you've configured on port 80. Port 80 is HTTP traffic. Now, what is the protocol that we're using to connect to the server? You got it right. We're using SSH. That is a protocol that operates over port 22. So it seems like we have not allowed that, or we have not enabled that. And it's great that this lets us know. It's important that you kind of notice what happens here, and that, yeah, we could enable all the security, but we could essentially lock ourselves out of the server. You know, if I was to enable this, where it would shut down everything except for port 80, we would no longer be able to log into the server, and we'd likely have to shut it down, delete it, and start over. So I'm gonna hit no, because I do not want to deal with that. And we will leave UFW off for now, but you can see here what this does, and you can see here how the options that it gave us. This is your restrictions. This is how you allow things to easily pass through the server. And again, we're going to hop in with IP tables in a second, but I'm not going to mess with that. Cool. Let me take a break here. Let's take a look at the chat. Sitting going, my links, plus test. I'm doing the Golang. So that's cool. I'm glad you've been going through the Golang exercises. Again, Golang is great, and I think once you learn, like if you do spend some time learning Golang, it's so much easier to hop in to another language. So that's pretty cool. It looks like you're doing your Linux Plus stuff. I actually might go back and do some. I might try to get some of my Linux certifications, only because I was working with someone and they knew way more about Linux than I did. I definitely know enough to do. I know a good amount about Linux. I know a ton about Linux. I know enough to get the job done. I know more than enough from what most jobs require. But this guy was actually a Unix engineer. He was doing some pretty deep stuff inside of the systems. You know, on a daily basis, he was rebuilding kernels and all that stuff. So he knew a lot, and I kind of wanted to know a little bit more about what he was doing. So I might start studying for that a bit myself. I do think Linux Plus is pretty cool. Cool. All right. So we're going to skip past this. Well, not really skip past it. This is how you would have configured your firewall, at least the UFW firewall. But yeah, we're going to be doing some stuff with IP tables later. All right. So we went through, and that's configured. Now we're going to check our web server. So this command here, systemctl, system control. This is how you manage services on a systemd server. Most Linux distributions, if not all, have switched over to systemd for the managing of their services. It used to be something called sysv, the system 5 or init, and so you still can, but you used to manage applications like this. If I wanted to check the status of Nginx, right here it says systemctl status Nginx. Pretty straightforward. If I paste that in, it will give me information about Nginx. It says it's active and it's already running, and I can see that it's loaded and all this stuff. So it looks like everything's all good here. You used to be able to do it on some older machines. I think you can still do them here. There used to be this command scenter.d and then the name of the service, so Nginx, and then status. So my muscle memory, you might see me do this more than not, because my muscle memory types that in by default. Like it just types it in real fast because I'm a little bit old school. And so you get the same stuff here. This command actually now, because they knew so many people would have so much trouble remembering the new syntax, it kind of just redirects to that same syntax. But another way to get it, but you should be using this. This is the way you should do it. The name of the command, so systemctl, the option you want, so either start or stop or kill or status, and then the name of the service here. So that's how we can see the status of a service. So yeah, we ran that, so we can find out Nginx is already active and it's running. And now you can access the default Nginx landing page to confirm that the software is running properly through your IP address. So how can we get the IP address? I showed you in the Linux course, we can do this command, ipconfig. Oh man, is ifconfig? Sorry. Now we're thinking ipconfig is for Windows, but it gives us this IP config. This is actually not the IP address. This is an internal IP address, but we can just go back here and we can grab the IP address from our dashboard. There are some ways we can still get this IP address from inside of here, but we're not going to take up any time with that. That's for another time. But we've got this IP address, and again, we talked about I think last time we talked about how DNS how IP addresses are how systems know how to get to other systems. It's an address. It's like your home address, and that's how it knows where to go to get data. So if I paste this into a web browser, it works. It works the same way that you type it in Google does because of DNS. So DNS just translates that domain name into an IP address, so we can also just use the IP address directly. And this proves that we get this. Our browser is operating over the HTTP protocol over port 80, and it gets this data back. If I actually stop this status page, is just to let you know it's working. You'll always get this out of the box. But just to prove that we did this, I can click stop. Whoops, let me add sudo in front. And if I refresh now, you see it's spinning, and then it's going to time out because there's no longer any service running over that protocol. Again, that port 80 protocol is important. Unable to connect because there's nothing running on this system. So whenever you see a site down, it might be because the web server isn't running. So let's go ahead and start that back up. All right, so we started back up, and if we refresh, just like that, we get it back. So we are now serving content. We're serving information over port 80 over the HTTP protocol from this server. So we got to run it. Great job, pretty easy. We followed this tutorial. All we did is copy and paste, and it gave us everything that we needed to do. It let us know that we would get here. Now, server blocks. This is going to be great. So this is an optional piece. I'll show you why it's optional. But we'll go ahead and we will run through. We're going to modify this a little bit on the fly. Let's start with this. So let's read this really quick. When using the Nginx web server, you can add server blocks, similar to virtual host in Apache. So that doesn't help. That's a weird thing to put there if you're not familiar with Apache. But virtual hosts are what allow you to host or define rules for multiple websites in the same instance of Apache. So with Nginx, with Apache, I can host multiple websites off of the same server. Now, you just saw I started Nginx up, and I went to the IP address, and it delivered me to this page. Two things. If I was running other websites, how would the server know what information to send back that differentiated them? By default, it would really just deliver this page. But if we have different websites, we want to be able to define what happens on both of those. And there are also a lot of other things that happen with web traffic that you may want to control. You may want to control headers. You may want to add information to headers. You may want to redirect. You may want to do, you may want to proxy somewhere. You may want to pass through proxy somewhere. There's a lot of options, when it comes to web traffic. Again, think about yourself as traffic control, as air traffic control, up in the tower, determining what happens. Planes are coming in, traffic is coming in, you're determining where they go, which runway they go to, and all that stuff. So you're the one that's really managing that flow of information. But how would you go about setting up multiple websites here? And virtual hosts allow you to do that. The server blocks allow you to do that and set up different functionality. So we'll set that up. They said they'll set up a domain called example.com, and we will also set up one called example.com, which we do not own, but no big deal. We learned something in the last class that that'll allow us to kind of mess around with that. Cool. So we'll follow this. We'll set up our own custom domains right now. But maybe first, let's talk about how it knows to serve this page. Like, where is this coming from? Where is this welcome to Nginx page coming from? So I actually don't know by default, but where I think it is, usually, in an example here, it wants to create a file in var www.html. So this is a common place for websites. So you might ask why. I have no idea why. This is just a common path for websites, var www HTML, and HTML being those files that you want to serve up. And if I do an ls here, you can see I have this file here, this index.nginx-debian HTML. I think this got installed here when I installed Nginx. I think the installation of it put that there. But let's take a look at what is inside it. So let's vim this file. All right, and now we've got some HTML. This may look confusing to you, but if you don't know what HTML is, HTML again is just a structure of a page. It's actually pretty simple, but we can see here that we have a headline of welcome, a title of welcome to Nginx with an exclamation point. What do we have here? Same thing. We've got some styles here, and then you can see here how everything matches up. All the content on the left is over here on the right. And so it's serving that Nginx server is serving this page. And I can prove that to you. Let's change some of the page. So welcome to Nginx, and I can change that to saying, whoa, oh yeah, welcome to Mastermind Academy with 3 exclamation points. And we'll save that. Whoops. So it let us know that it's read only. Why is that? Read only, like if it gives you an option like that, that's a permissions problem, and I just need to edit it like this. Again, sudo. If you're ever unsure, you should just do sudo. Welcome to Mastermind Academy. 3 exclamation points. Save it. And if I refresh this page now, it will update immediately because it is serving this HTML. But how does it know to serve this file? This file got put over in var www HTML. How does it know like that's what it should be serving? Great question. It knows this through configuration. So Nginx and Apache, they take these configuration files, and that's where you can put these server blocks and the things that it's talking about here. You basically put in your configuration. You say, hey, when it reaches this path, I want it to do this thing and serve this content and serve this data. So we're gonna go and see if we can find one of those configuration files and see if we can piece together how it's pointing to this directory. So I'm gonna skip this stuff, but I just wanna look through here and I wanna see where I can make a new server block. So this will tell me where the files are that I wanna take a look at. So it looks like the files I want are in cd, etc, nginx, sites available. So actually, let's just go into this file and see what's in etc nginx. So nginx comes with a bunch of things by default. Conf.d is important. So this is where a lot of your configs are going to go. Modules available, modules enabled is important. Sites available, sites enabled are important. We're going to be worrying about just these two: sites available and sites enabled, because we are going to be setting up some websites. So I'm going to cd into sites of, actually, yeah, let's go to sites available. So sites available is simply a directory for you to set up these server blocks, to set up websites, set up configuration for websites to use for later. So here we have, you see default right here. So let's take a look at what's in default. All right, we got a lot of stuff here. Everything up top is everything you see here is a comment. So this is just information. This is not actually anything we need to use. But what we do have here is a server block. And I know this can look pretty confusing, and I actually wish maybe we shouldn't look at it in this format. Might be a little confusing to look at it in this format, but basically all the lines that are white are the ones you want to worry about. So ideally, or realistically, I could remove all these lines to make it a little bit cleaner, and I might do that. But this is the key thing. It's listening on port 80, and it's set here as the default server. So no matter what, if Nginx, it doesn't know what to do with it, if you didn't define any logic, adding this default server tag here will take over if there are no matches elsewhere. And listen on port 80 just is telling the process of Nginx to listen over that protocol, over port 80. And down here is just the same thing set for IPv6. So you need 2 explicit things for IPv4 and IPv6. All these things, this comes by default. You can use these as your building blocks. Again, I know it can be a little complicated first. Don't worry about all the syntax. Just worry about the high level that there are these server blocks that you can use to specify different websites. And so this is the key thing here. Root. Your root is where, for this server block, for this individual server block, for no other server blocks, is going to look at this root. So it's looking in var www HTML. That's where those files were. And it's looking for these files, normally called index files. You can call them whatever you want. You just have to specify it here, but index is what it's looking for. So it's looking for anything named any of these things. And you can see here, the file was called this. We can name it any of these things and it will still pick it up. And it's looking for these things inside of the root. And that's essentially how you control what it's looking for. And then we'll talk about some location blocks in a second. But the server block is what is most important here. But this is where the configuration takes place. So again, there are configuration files, and we've got two options here. We've got sites available and sites enabled. So let's look at sites enabled. Take a look at what's in here. All right, we did not talk about this so far in the Linux portion. This is what is called a symbolic link, commonly referred to as a symlink, symbolic link. So there is an item here called default, just like it was in the last directory, but it's not actually here. It is a reference to this file. So Etsy Nginx sites available, we just came out of the sites available folder, and we saw that there was a default file there. That file was actually there. This one's a symbolic link. So that's the difference between sites available and sites enabled. So if you want to set up a site, you put it in sites available, you set up your server blocks, you set up this website, the configuration for this website in sites available, so that you have it as an option. It is not working until you also move that file to sites enabled. You have to put it in that folder for it to actually be enabled. But you don't need to copy it there. You can set up that symbolic link to put it in both places. But once it's in that sites enabled folder, and that's when it works. And so if I actually I'm not going to remove that symbolic link right now, but if I did, this would probably deliver me a white page. I'm actually not sure what happens. It might actually not be able to restart, but sites available are when you want to set up your sites, and when you want to actually deploy it or make sure it works, you want to put it in sites enabled so that Nginx actually uses it. So we're going to set up some extra sites shortly, but I'll stop there. That was a lot of information, and see if anyone has any questions. Definitely ask some questions if you're confused about that. We went over a lot. It's confusing. How far back did I miss? Start right here. What about serverless? Great question, Chris Pickles. Serverless, a little bit of a misnomer. We will be talking about serverless. It's not actually serverless. It's still running on a server. It's just a server that you don't have to worry about. So all the stuff we're doing now is, we're doing on a server. You don't have to worry about all this configuration in terms of serverless. You basically just pass this, you pass Amazon or pass Google or pass Microsoft your code. It runs it for you. You don't have to worry about those servers, but it is in fact still running on a server. So we will be talking about serverless for sure. Is this cool. All right, so let's go ahead and actually let's look at the tutorial again, and let's see what they want us to do, and then maybe we'll set something up. Cool. I'm going to take this and we're going to set up our own site. So it looks like here they give you a lot of options. Again, it's important to look through these. For time's sake, I'm going to hop through, and this is what a server block looks like. So that block that we looked at that had all the stuff in it, it essentially just looks like this right here, without all those comments in it. You can see here how we have a root, we have the root, we have both of these listen lines. Now you can see here how these don't have that default tag. So, sorry, let's look at, you can see here how this has a default server tag. You can only have default server in a single server block. So you can't have it in two places because obviously only one can be default at a time. But you can see here, these look very similar. And so, this is setting up the same thing. And, we still have the root here. And so down here we have a root. And we have all the index files next that we want to check for. And then the server name. This is where it is important. So server name is this is how you specify the difference between the hosts. Server name it's going to be trying to match your request, the request that your client sends in. So the browser that you're using, the request that it sends in, it's going to be trying to match a server name. So this says example.com and www.example.com. So again, that would be like, for me, that would be mastermind.io and www.mastermind.io. And then we try to match these and deliver the files. And then you can set up these location blocks, because you can set up some logic, again, with the web traffic controllers here, and you can set up some logic based on different things. So, we have mastermind.io we have just mastermind.io here. But you could also, so for location will be, so this is equal to slash. So just mastermind.io is equal to slash. So whenever you see something like location slash, that is the root. We talked about absolute file pathing. Slash is the very root. So location is root. It is whatever the server name is. That's what slash means. But I could add in some logic. I could add in a location block for curriculums. And I could have slash curriculum forward to a whole different site. I could have it forward to Google or proxy to Google or Yahoo, or I could set up a second site and I can divert it over to that direction. And I will put a location block down here that was at slash curriculum, and then I could give it some options. I could give it the logic that it would need to be able to do that. So that's when these start to get pretty powerful. You have a lot of options at your disposal here. So let's go ahead and let's set up a quick website using the server block. So, we need to do a couple things here. We need to first, I'll make this larger. First thing I want to do is I'm going to go into sites enabled or sites available. And we're going to call this, site, stream site. No, let's talk about something cool. Aaron is the best.com, because I am the best. And this is gonna be the first site. Whoops, that is not what I wanted to do. Yes, that is what I wanted to do. And I'll go ahead and paste in this information. And I've got my server block here. But I need to change some things, and the tutorial says this. So I could leave it as example.com, but all this isn't anything special. This is a path. I want to set up the path in which the files for aaronisthebest.com is going to be at. So we're going to download some files in a second, but I want to point to the right place. So we're going to set up a folder to make it easy. var www aaronisthebest.com/html. Let's keep it simple. We'll be able to use this paradigm over and over again. We want to use, I'm just going to use an index.html, I think. So, escape, sorry, having them problems. And actually, escape, undo. All right, cool. I just want to make sure, I wasn't sure if I needed a semicolon at the end, but I'll just remove this. I'll leave these options. And again, we want this to be called Aaron is the best.com and www. And I should just copy and pasted that, but I need to work on my typing, so this gives me a little bit of practice. Cool. I'll leave it as that. This is the example that was given, copy and pasted in, and put in my own information for where it's at example.com. All right, we're going to save this. Oh, come on. Let's copy this. 1 second. I did not vim this. I did not sudo this. So let's just save. I have to quit, and I have to open up again using sudo because of the location of this file. I could just sudo root, but that's bad practice, and I don't want to teach you bad things. All right, we've got our file saved. So now you're going to learn how to make, I told you we'll be learning a lot of Linux along the way, and that's why it wasn't important that we spent 4 classes on Linux, but let's set up this symlink. So we're going to go back, and we're going to go into sites enabled. All right, we're going to set up a symlink. To set up a symlink, we are going to use the ln command, which I think is for link, but we can take a look at it. We can take a look at what it is. ln makes links between files. All right, and it's going to be ln, some options, a target, and a link name. So let's go ahead and set that up. So symbolic links need I'm not actually sure. I guess ln by itself makes a hard link. I actually don't know. I'm not sure I've ever used ln, but I mean ln alone. But we want a symbolic link. Okay, so yeah, I guess ln makes a hard link, like an actual true connection between two files. But this -s is going to make a symbolic link. This is going to be, it's symbolic. It's not a hard link. So we're going to do ln -s, and sometimes I mess this up, so we'll try this out. It said target and destination. Target, it said target and link name. So I think the target is going to be the file that I want. So I could do it relative to where I am now, but I want to follow this same paradigm, and I want to give it an absolute location. So I want it to be Etsy, Nginx, sites available, and then the file that we did was aaronisthebest.com. And then I want to call that aaronisthebest.com. So what this should do is this should create a link right here where we are, and it's going to call that file that it makes, that's symbolic file that it makes, aaronisthebest.com, and it's going to be linked to this location right here. Now, this might be wrong, and actually I've got an extra slash in there. Thank you for calling it the double slash. I missed that. And we're gonna hit enter here, and permission denied, because I need to start remembering to type in sudo. Oh, okay, cool. So now if I check what's in here, all right, now we've got two here. So now I've got this file that's pointed at the file that we just created, which is aaronisthebest.com. Now we need to do a couple other things. We set this up. But Nginx, the way Nginx works is the daemon, the process does not take any, so we made that change. Changes do not take effect when you modify files. I could delete this default file, or I could modify it, and nothing would happen. It would not affect the operation of our web server until it gets reloaded or restarted. So this configuration gets loaded in at runtime. So when the application starts up is when all this configuration gets loaded in. So whenever you make changes like this, you have to restart Nginx for them to take effect. So far, everything that we've done hasn't done actually anything in the grand scheme of things, but we're missing some things. The first thing is we need to actually put a site in place. So here in the HTML directory, I said that our stuff would be at var aaronisthebest.com/HTML. So we got to make those directories. So remember, to make a directory in Linux, it's mkdir, and I'm going to say aaronisthebest.com. And then I also said everything was going to be in this HTML directory. To create multiple files, folders at once, you can put in the entire path, and you can add a -p. What it'll do is it'll create any parent directory that doesn't exist. So even if I went var aaronisthebest HTML, it will run through, and it will, with that -p, it'll create any of these directories that does not exist. If I did not add the -p, it will say, hey, this directory already exists, so I'm not going to do anything. So I do this right here, and get permission denied. Again, sudo. This is a great reinforcement for all of us. And it spits it back out, and now I can see in here I have an Aaron-is-the-best folder. So I'm going to move into that, and I'm going to move into the HTML folder. Cool, nothing in here. If we were to restart Nginx right now, we'd have the files, we'd have the folder in place for the root, but nothing was served because we don't have any files here. Let's get some files here. So I'm just going to Google free HTML websites. And I'm gonna do, actually, I know a website for this, I think has cool ones, HTML5 up dot, actually just Google that. Cool. I like this website because it has some cool free ones. You are absolutely are not the only one who pronounce sudo like judo. So I actually only recently stopped saying sudo. I said sudo for years, and then someone convinced me otherwise, and I watched a bunch of videos where people who I look up to were saying sudo, so I took on to say sudo, and it took a lot of work to stop my brain from saying sudo. But no, you're absolutely right. Sudo was I had to actively try to say that. I said sudo for my whole career, to be honest. But cool. So we're gonna take this paradigm shift template. Oops, let's exit out of this. So, show you something cool. Again, we talked about before how to download things from the command line. I'm going to take this HTML thing. So if you ever want to set up a cheap website, you can grab these templates for free. There are tons of free HTML templates, and you can take a look at a live demo. And so we're going to set up a site that looks like this. Pretty cool site, and we're going to just copy it. So free download, we're going to copy this link address, copy link location. What that's going to do is that's going to copy the URL for this download. And remember, we talked about downloading things from the command line. How do we download something from the command line? Bunch of options. Well, there's two options really. We're going to use something called wget, and we're going to paste in that link that I copied. So I copied the link address. This is that link address. I'm going to paste this in. And it may not let me download because this may be an HTTPS problem, but there are a lot of things we can do. I'm going to let that go. Actually, I'm going to kill it. What we can do is I can download this. I could solve that real quick, but let's go ahead and use some other tools that we talked about. So let's SCP this to the server. I'm going to download this locally to my downloads folder, and let's SCP this up. So let's actually go into downloads, and let's run the SCP command. So we're going to SCP. We need to SCP what just downloaded this HTML up paradigm shift in here. Cool. So here's what we're going to do. SCP-I, the location of our PIM file. So I know it's in my documents, academy.pim. All right, and then it's Ubuntu at our IP address, which is this, and then the location. I'm gonna just put it. Whoops. I'm gonna just put it right in the home directory. Whoa, SCP-I. Oh, I never gave it the file that we need to do. So, hyper. All right. Yeah, curl will work. Absolutely. I wanted to use one of the tools that we did, but yes, curl should work. I actually think this might be actually, let's try that out real quick. I actually think this is a problem with the firewall, but maybe not. Let's try that. You can also use curl. I think we talked about that last time. I think we could just curl L and then this. And my stream thing is going slow. Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is actually a firewall issue, but no big deal. Ooh, this is not good. Yep, we're definitely dropping frames. Give me a second. Called it. Good call. This is why you need better internet. Comcast. Everyone reach out to Comcast, man. Tell them that this is terrible that we don't have fast enough internet to upload while we're doing this. Whoa. Let's see. Are we back? Are we back? Let's see. Let me know when we're back. I pulled off. I definitely knew what we're doing. What do we got? We back at all? Okay. I think we are. Maybe the one I have doesn't. Okay, seems better now. All right, that was annoying. Okay, so what can we do here? Sudo. Let me try something really quick. CTL IP. How do you stop IP tables? Let's Google this. I think it's a firewall problem. Let me make sure IP tables is enabled on here. Just want to check real quick. Oh, UFWs. It says inactive, so we should be fine. Let me just check something really. Just checking something really quick. I want to be able to download this. Okay. I think this is the problem. Okay, let me see if this wget works now. No. This is interesting. Yeah, I thought IP tables was disabled inside of for this exact reason. I thought IP tables was disabled inside of Lightsail. Cool. So I don't think I need to actually flush that. I doubt it. I doubt it has an HTTP link. How do I do this without? No, I can download this. So let's see this. Lightsail. Actually, hold on. Just checking a few things real quick. Lightsail. Does Lightsail has special? I never used this, so does it have special IP stuff, metrics, networking? Oh, look at that! Excellent. I tried to HTTP link. I don't think it's good, but it looks like we have a firewall right here. So, yeah, so I just downloaded an SCP the file, third billing cycle. That's what killed the stream for a second. My upload speeds, it hogged a bunch of my upload speeds when I tried to upload the file. So I don't want to do that again. But look, we have a firewall. We have some firewall rules here. So we talk about firewalls. This is the thing that, determines what gets in and what gets out. So I'm going to save this and see if now we have a working thing. So basically, let me tell you what I used to determine what was happening. It says it was trying to connect to this site here. So actually, cancel this. Right here is where the real problem was at, and it's over port 443. We talked about 443 being that SSL TLS port. Because it was hanging there, I assumed that was a problem. It looks like that was a problem here. So let's see let's see if we try again, what happens. Whoops. Over HTTPS, because that's the one we care about, and that's probably the only one that it serves over. Assume that would fix it. Let's see. Let me give that a second. Which process accepts connections? Okay, that should be it. Huh. Let me try a different website. I don't need to use that website, so let me see. Whoa. Maybe it might be this free HTML5 templates. Yeah, let's just go somewhere else. Let's grab. Does the live demo come with a download link? Oh, this is it. I typed in free, and that one seems like it wanted me to buy something. I feel duped. I feel betrayed. Let's see if this one has a free one. Yeah, it could be they're blocking the IP or something. Let's start with a simple one. I'm sure one of these will these for free. I want someone to just give me a download. Maybe I'll just take off HTML5. I want something that looks cool. That's a good one. Show progress. We can definitely add that. I don't think it's doing anything, but I don't think show progress works for everything. But yeah, I don't think it's connecting at all. But I do think we can grab a very simple free theme, or I can create my own index, which is fine. I just wanted it to look cool. And WordPress, I just want. Yep, and so this is cool because this is these are the kind of issues you're gonna run into on a daily basis. All right, cool. This looks good. I think this is what I think this one will work. I hope. We're gonna copy this link location. Let's try this one more time. Whoops. I wonder if that can't be the problem. All right, so we got this index here. It downloaded an index, but I don't think this is what we want actually, but it's fine. I think we wanted the zip file. I don't think it copied the entire address. Let's do this. I'm gonna copy this actual link really quick. See if this works. I think it just actually download the actual page instead. So actually, I'm gonna be really mad if it's just this. But I don't think so. Okay, I didn't think so. That makes me feel better. So sudo wget. I'll do. Give me the. How come it won't give me open link and new tab? All right. Oh well. I'm just going to create something. This is annoying, but I'm going to just create something. rm-rf. Don't do this. Don't run this command. But I'm going to do it because I can. You should specify what you're going to delete. You should not do rm-rf star. Bad move. But we're going to vim an index.html here. And we're going to say this. We're not even going to put any HTML here. We're just going to type some words in here. This is Aaron's website because he is the greatest. All right. So now we have our HTML here. Oh, man. Bad memory. All right. All right. So save this, and then let's go ahead. So, all right, we did all that. We'll at the end of this, I think we're gonna figure out. I'm gonna take some extra time to figure out what's going on with those downloads. We'll see if we can get those downloads working, because I think that's something that would be cool to work through. But I don't want to take up too much of your time for anyone who's not interested in troubleshooting that problem. So we have our website. This index file represents a website that we have set up here. We've installed a website here. We might have some other files like images and things that are associated with this. But right now we have this index.html. Now what we can do is restart Nginx, because now I think we have everything in place, but let's see what happens. So let's do it the right way. System ctl restart Nginx. Okay, everything looks good. It seems like it restarted. If you're not sure what happened, or if you're not sure what Nginx is doing, you can check status. And then we have this. So, one, let's hit the IP address to make sure that at the very least, this is still displaying. So it is still working, but how do we get to aaronisthebest.com? So we set this up to be able to read that host name. So what we can do is we can modify our local host file. We talked about that last time. So I'm gonna vim sudo vim /etc host. And I remember I said this was a good way to be able to test things exactly like this. So I want to set up my computer so that whenever I type in aaronisthegreatest.com, that it goes to this IP address. So I'll put in the IP, we'll follow this paradigm. I'll put in the IP address first, and then I'll say aaronisthegreatest.com, and then I'll say www.aaronisthegreatest.com. All right, what this is doing, taking it back, this is overriding my local DNS. DNS being domain name service. So this is the way that domains, computers translate domains into IP addresses. And so, yes, so the greatest, probably spelled something wrong elsewhere too, but we'll figure out those misspellings in a second. But yes, you can, Zerk, by the way, you can set this to any IP address you want. You can do it for anything, for Google, for Yahoo, for anything you want. You can do this, and this only sets it locally for your computer. So whenever I go to aaronisthegreatest.com or www.aaronisthegreatest.com, it will go to this IP address. Cool, and I'll go ahead and I'll save this. And all right, now that information will get passed along to the server. So now when I go to Aaron is the greatest, I really should have copied this so I had it in my buffer, so I would not have to keep typing it. All right, I get, it's going to the default server, it looks like. So it does go here, which is really nice. What happens if I go to www. All right, so both of these go right here, and they send me to what appears to be the default settings. And let's see why that is. And I bet you, I know why. I wonder if this is what I actually called the site. So let's take a look back at what I set up. So if I go back into, let's see, Nginx, and take a look at my configuration files, sites available, and I called it Aaron is the best, not Aaron is the greatest. So let's change that here, because I did not call it Aaron is the greatest. Aaron is, but you can see here how that was actually a great example here. So I set up, this is what I set up. I set up aaronisthebest.com. I set it up so that this would read aaronisthebest.com, but my DNS here is actually Aaron is the greatest. So what happened? When I typed that in, it still went to this IP address. This IP address points at this server. And because it doesn't match any other file that we set up, it went ahead and it delivered the default options. That's why that default server is important. So you can see here, that's a catch-all to anything that's pointed at your server. So let's go ahead and change this to Aaron is the best. Because, again, I am the best. So cool, aaronisthebest.com. Aaron is www.aaronisthebest.com. Let's go ahead and change this to Aaron is the best. And look at that. We still got something back. So two things. You know that this worked. You know that we got a proper HTTP response back, because it'll give you a message if you do not go to a website that doesn't exist. And it says this is Aaron's website because he is the greatest. That's the information that we put into that HTML file. That is great. So we were able to set up that local DNS to kind of override what's going on. So we don't own aaronisthebest.com. The rest of the world won't be able to do that. If you type in Aaron is the best on your computer right now, it will not work, but you can, if you do paste in what I have in here, it will work for you. So if you do something like this, it will work. And yeah, it will work for you. We'll be able to access the server. So we've set up one site here. And so we can actually go ahead and set up another site really quick. So let's go back over here and let's just copy this. Let's copy Aaron is the best to mastermindacademy.com. And so now, all right, so we're gonna set up a whole second site. So mastermindacademy.com, let's change the location in which it's accessed at. Whoa. So I'm just doing this really quick because I want to get to the load balancing portion really quick. mastermindacademy.com. So we're going to make a new folder. And let's change this as well. All right, so we have another one, and let's go ahead and let's rerun our mkdir command. Oh, sorry, I moved really fast there. So two things I don't think we ever talked about. If you ever want to see a list of the things that you already typed, or commands that you already executed, you can type in this command, which is history, and it'll show you all the commands that you've previously run. You can actually run each of these commands. If I type in exclamation point and then the name of the command, the number of the command, it'll actually run that command for me. So you saw exclamation point 90, that was just an LL command, which is a LS command basically. And so it actually it told me what it was running here, and actually ran that command. So if you want to rerun a command, you can do that, and you can see kind of what you're doing. And then what you can also do is you can do a Control R, which gives you a reverse history search. And I know I ran a make directory command before. And I can go MK, I can type in M and then K, and it'll match what was in my history. And so I can use that. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. That's already created. But I can just modify this command to work with what we have. We'll go Mastermind Academy. We'll do that. We'll cd into var www Mastermind Academy HTML, and we'll make our own index here, and we will. This is Mastermind Academy. Cool. There's a whole other site here, and we'll set up our host files for that. But I actually think I can do this without. I was gonna spin up some other servers to show you how this works, but we can probably do this the same way. What kind of load balancing will you be doing? So all I'm going to be doing for the load balancing is Nginx actually has some load balancing rules. You can kind of set up these load balancing pools, these pools in which you can push your data, and then you can set up some. There's some simple load balancing logic that you can specify. So we're gonna set that up really quick. So actually, let's hop straight into that. You've already seen me set up one site, so you can see how if I set up my host file, it's gonna go to mastermindacademy.com. But pretty simple. You can just set up as many. You can set up as many of these sites available. You can set up as many of these items as you want and enable them as you please. You can actually combine. There's ways you can combine them into a single file, which I don't recommend. This is a better way of doing it. This is a better way of doing it. Apache, you'll likely see them combined into a single file. But this, I think, is a better way of doing it. But cool, let's set up some load balancing real quick. We got a little over 20 minutes left. I think we can get that done. So let's head over to the Googles. We'll go to where's Google? How to set up Nginx load balancing. Cool. Very simple. Do I prefer DigitalOcean or AWS? So depends on what you're doing. AWS has, by a pretty substantial margin, more features, more options, way more services. But DigitalOcean, so that's better for when you're doing larger projects, when you are, especially if you're doing work for a company, companies choose that because, you've got a lot of things there. You've got the support of AWS behind you. That's great. DigitalOcean is a lot better to me for personal projects, for smaller things. I would have used DigitalOcean here, but I actually have some AWS credits that I want to burn. But DigitalOcean is easier to kind of just hop straight into, more developer focused. But I do prefer AWS for actually implementing some cool things. They have more options available to you. Yeah, DigitalOcean is, if it meets your needs, it's great. Amazon just has so many services that you can use and utilize. It's pretty great. DigitalOcean is, I don't think they're intending to really match that. I think DigitalOcean is the best middle ground. There's a lot of people still offering just droplets, basically VPSs. But I think DigitalOcean is doing a good job of providing those services that most people need and not just all the random services. Amazon makes a service for everything, so it gets really hard to use. But DigitalOcean kind of condenses it down into just the things that they think people need. But cool. Let's set up this really quick. Load balancing using Nginx. How old is this? So that's one thing you also want to look at. If you can find out, the date in which something was published, that helps because a lot of times this stuff becomes outdated. But it looks like they're going to have us install Nginx here. It looks like this is pretty cool. Let's go to this section that we want. Cool. So it looks like we have some options here. So let's copy exactly what they do. So with Nginx installed and tested, you can start configuring it for load balancing. In essence, all you need to do is set up Nginx with instructions for which type of connection to listen to and where to redirect them. So again, it's very simple. I really like the wording here. You just need to set it up with the instructions for which type of connections to listen to and where to redirect them. And I will paste this in here in case anyone wants to follow. You can really end up shooting yourself in the foot with AWS. Absolutely, you can end up shooting yourself in the foot with AWS. When we get into the AWS portion, I will harp on turning off your services and making sure you don't accidentally leave things on, because it can cost you a lot of money, even though the things that we were doing will be free up front. But if you forget about them, it will be problematic. AWS support is usually pretty good about, if you say, hey, I was learning how to use your service, I don't know what happened. They're usually pretty good about, not making you pay. But again, AWS, you can really shoot yourself in the foot. And just because there's so many different things, you might use things just because they're there. And you don't really need them, and that stuff costs money. So you can really, really shoot yourself in the foot. But cool. So it looks like we can set up load balancing. Pretty simple. It says here it's telling us, hey, set up this file. And then it looks like all we need to do is define this thing here. So let's take a look at actually what this is. This configuration, this defines servers that you want to include in your load balancing scheme. So again, let's take a look at back at load balancers. Your load balancing scheme is this back here. We need to know what servers we have available to us to send traffic to. And that's what this is. You set up this block, upstream backend. Just says, hey, these are the servers that are in that pool. And then right here, you see we just have a normal server block. So it's actually pretty straightforward. So you've already seen this, But what you can do is, so you see this, but all it's doing, you can see here, is setting up a server that listens, and all it does when you hit it is it passes this to HTTP backend, and backend is actually just a variable for this up here. We can call upstream anything we want. I call this upstream mastermind, and down here it would just say mastermind here instead of backend, and I can put all the servers in the pool that I want. Pretty simple. And then actually this is pretty cool. This is what I was talking about before. So you have some options on what kind of load balancing you want to do. So you can set up least connections. So this will send the connection, this will send the request to the server that has the least amount of connections on it. So if you want to make sure all your servers, are weighted in a way that, the one that has the most headroom gets accessed, these connections will do that. IP hash is if you want to, I think IP hash is determined to be able to keep requests on the same server, I believe. While round robin list connections, their uses, however, cannot provide. Yeah, session persistence. So imagine that every request your computer makes, it may actually go to a different server with load balancing. You don't always want this to happen. Sometimes you want to keep that session persistent. So sometimes you want to make sure that requests that are coming from the same client go to the same server. And that's what this IP hash does. It allows you to have persistent sessions. So if my first request goes out to server number 3, that all my subsequent requests will also go out to server number 3. And there are a lot of times why this might be important. Round robin is one. And again, round robin will just pick kind of the next active one in the option list. And I think there are actually a few others in here. So let's go ahead and try to copy this really quick. This may, let's spin up a couple. Do we have time to do this? I may try to incorporate this in the next one, but maybe we'll start to try to get started here. Because I don't think we have enough time, because I'll have to spin up more servers and set up Nginx on all of those, or Apache on all of those to be able to serve this stuff. But this is essentially all you're going to need for load balancing. Set up the server that you want. So this could be, mastermind.io right here. And then I would just I could spin up a bunch of servers that are running my website or my application, and I could point them to that. I think I'm gonna, as much as I would really like to set this up right now, I think I'm gonna hold off, because I think this would take us a little while. And I want you to be able to see this truly in action. So I think I'm gonna try to incorporate this into next week's lab. Next week's lab is pretty big. It's pretty fun. I spent some time really making sure it was well thought out, and it was going to use all of the things that we've been doing so far, and helping you get a handle on it. I'm actually going to release the lab tomorrow, so you have some time to look at it. Maybe if you want to tackle it yourself beforehand, I'm gonna release the lab tomorrow, both on social media. I'll send a link out on social media and in the Slack, and so you can try it out, check it out if you want. But we'll be going through the lab together. This lab is actually pretty interesting. So if it's something that you don't want to go through together, if you want to try on your own, definitely I encourage you to not watch the stream and to try it on your own first. But we'll be going through that. But I think I may try to incorporate this into that. I think it would be a good thing to do. Let's actually make this a little bit larger. One thing that we didn't talk about is we talked about port 80. So all the things we set up were on port 80. Vim/Etsy Nginx. Aaron is the best. Actually sites available. All right, we talked about port 80, but how, we talked about things also being served through port 443, so SSL TLS port. How does that work? So that works like this. By default, you specify 443 instead of 80, so we're going to listen on port 443, and then you specify SSL. I actually think it's all. I've never not seen it be SSL. I don't know if TLS is an option, but this is still, it's the same thing. This is just an option to let you know, to let Nginx know that it's going to need to provide a certificate in this request. Same thing here, your server domain. So this will be server name aaronisthebest.com or www.aaronisthebest.com. And then we would need to set up, so this is kind of the old school way. You don't need to actually do it this way anymore. And actually, I think tools like Let's Encrypt will set this up for you, but you would need to point at, we talked about generating those SSL certificates, or TLS certificates. You would need to basically specify where the certificate was on your server. So you need to put it somewhere on the server, and then you need to provide the location for it. So that will come with 2 files. Actually, it will come with more files than that, but most of the time you'd only need to specify 2. And here's the certificate, and here's the key. So you need to tell it where both of those things were. And then you need to tell it what protocols to use. So I guess this will always be SSL. And then you can see here, these are all the TLS versions that are available. I actually think TLS version 1 is deprecated, so you don't want to use that. But again, there are tools that'll set this up for you. You actually don't really need to do this like this anymore, but this is how you would set up a site that had SSL enabled on it if you want to set it up manually. And this will work the same way. So you can see that that's not much different from the port 80. But you do need to specify those things here. Again, all these say then you need to exit the file and restart Nginx. Nginx also has, Nginx is actually pretty smart. So if you have some configuration that is broken, so let's say actually in here, whoops, I think Apache has this functionality now as well. But let's say I made a mistake. Let's say I fat fingered something, and let's say I didn't realize it was already a default server, and I threw in default server here. And again, you can only have one default server, which we already know is set. Nginx, I believe, will, if I try to restart it, if I try to restart this, Nginx has a way, it has a command that we could actually run beforehand, and we could check our configuration. So we could run a command and say, hey, run through all the configuration files that we have and make sure our configuration is up to date and okay. Make sure it's safe, and it will run through and it will evaluate that for you. If there are any errors, it will let you know about those errors. But sometimes people are lazy. You should get in the habit of checking that. I'll show you how to check that right after this. But I think Nginx by default right now should do that check first when you try to restart it, and basically give you an error, says, hey, I could not restart because I found this error, so I'm not going to shut down, I'm not going to restart. So Nginx is pretty resilient in that way, in that it shouldn't restart, so it shouldn't like take down your system if you should make an error. And cool, job for Nginx service failed because the control process exited with error code. And then we have a problem here. And actually, let's see if maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it doesn't in all versions. And let's see. Let's check the status and see if it's running. All right, so that actually broke Nginx. That's interesting. I did not expect that to break Nginx. In my experience, that will not break Nginx. It actually won't restart. So that's very interesting. But again, things go different when you do things live. But what we can do is, before I restart this, let's look up how to check our Nginx config. So, how to check Nginx configuration. All right. So it looks like you can do a task T for test, but this looks old. I thought there was a newer way. Let's check. This is all from 2009. Sometimes, if you're looking for an answer, I like to check a few more. One from 2018, one from 2016. So let's check this out and see what we have. All right. See, usually this is what would happen. It would reload and it would fail, and it might give you some error like this, but it looks like we can pass in this to test. So Nginx-C flag indicates certain configuration file. T tells Nginx to test our configuration first. So let's just see if we can do, we'll try something first. What happens if we just do the -T? All right, so if I just do a -T for tests, it tests all of them, and it says, hey, it tells me exactly what's wrong. Emergency. So there are usually a few different options for errors. There's usually warn, which usually means there's a problem, but it usually means there's a problem, but not necessarily a breaking problem. So usually just let you know, but it'll keep going. And there's like an error or an emergency. And it says a duplicate default server for 00.0.0.0 port 80 in this file. So it's letting me know there's a duplicate default server and that this failed. So I know exactly where to go to change it. If you reload instead of restart, it will keep running. Okay, yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe I'm used to reloading. Yeah. So yes, that's exactly what it is. Thank you. So this is actually one of the problems of automation. All the processes that we do now, or at least that I do now, are so automated that like I don't get to type in this stuff as often. So reload is the one that will keep it alive. Yeah, because that actually cannot be reloaded, but it lets us know exactly what the problem is, and we can go through and we can fix that problem. So it's like, oh no, we made our mistake, and then we can run our test again. Lets us know that the syntax is okay, and the test was successful. So let's start it actually. So I'm gonna start it back up, and then we'll try to do the reload. So we started it. Let's check out status. It's running. That looks good. Let's make that same change again. That same breaking change. Default. And let's try reloading. I think that actually stopped it. Oh no, it did not stop it. That's nice. Or did it? Okay, yes, that did it. So it didn't stop it. Looks like it's still running. So reload is the one that we carry. That's good, that we like to use. And I can just remove this. But you can check it with that -T. So if you're messing around with Nginx, don't be afraid of it. Let me reload. Get rid of that. Cool. Yeah. So you can check the syntax of your configuration files to make sure you have everything all good. No big deal there. What else? 4 minutes. That might be all I have. I really wanted to go through some more load balancing, but what I'll do is, again, I'm actually gonna go modify it right now. I will modify that. I'll modify our lab, and I'll send it out tomorrow again. So you can definitely, even if you don't plan on doing it on your own, try to read it, wrap your head around it, and the lab is very much something that you would be doing in a job. And so you can see here how we haven't even covered. We're not even halfway through. We're after this week we'll be halfway through the entirety of the course, but we've learned enough now to absolutely to be able to work a job. So you may have to spend some time mastering this stuff, but just the topics that we've covered is enough to absolutely get yourself a well-paying job in the technical industry. So again, we're going to learn how to put that all together. And I have a few versions of this lab. I have the lab we're going to do together, and then I'll actually release the rest of the labs in probably 2 to 3 weeks after, as we've learned a little bit more that have some modifications to them. So you'll have some options on things to do, to practice. There's also some bigger labs that are based on, depending on which ones you complete successfully or which ones you kind of like. There's some ones that kind of build off of that into the future. So you have some options to really build something out for yourself. Save a lot of stuff. Once we get into the infrastructure as code pieces, we'll actually be kind of redoing. Remember some of the stuff you're doing here. We'll actually be redoing these labs in a more automated way later, which is going to be really cool. And you're like, darn, I did so much work the first time. It's crazy how much how little work I had to do this time once we kind of learn some more things. But it's very important that you know how to do this stuff manually, and really understand what you're doing now. So yeah, that'll be pretty cool. Do you need to install Lightsail, or will VirtualBox? VirtualBox will work just fine. I do encourage you to reach out if you don't have either access to some type of virtual machine online. So either a DigitalOcean droplet or a Lightsail server or or VirtualBox. You should get access somehow. Reach out to me if you need help, or reach out in the Slack. People have been super helpful. I'm really busy. I do have a day job, so I do have trouble getting to help some of you sometimes. So thank you guys for kind of picking up the slack there and helping each other out. That's been pretty great. But VirtualBox, you'll do just fine. And maybe I'm even considering doing it. If I can figure out how to properly display it, I may do it locally on VirtualBox, because I know a lot of people are following via VirtualBox. I think that might be cool if I did that this way as well. But yeah, that is what next class is. Actually, let's take a look at the curriculum real quick. Let's talk about what that is and what's upcoming. All right, so we're finishing up this one we just did. So we learned a little bit about, Nginx and web servers and load balancers. We didn't get to dive into proxies, but we will absolutely dive into hands-on with proxies when we get into the container section. So don't sweat that at all. And we dove into firewalls a little bit as well. But this is the checkpoint lab that we're doing next week, and we're a lab designed to utilize all the concepts learned up to this point. So that's going to be pretty cool. Then after that, we're going to get into the meat and potatoes. So everything that we learned previous to this is going to be applicable, but it's going to be applicable now in cloud computing. So we're going to be hopping into different AWS services that kind of do some of the things that we've done manually already. This is a 4-parter. This will be 2 full weeks. There's a lot here. You can get a job just off of knowing this cloud stuff. This is the stuff I love too. I really love cloud computing. So that'll be pretty fun. Man, and all the stuff after this is actually really fun. I think you'll be able to, I don't think the next 2 weeks will be too intimidating. I actually think the cloud computing stuff won't be that intimidating. I actually think after the stuff we've gone over, it'll be relatively straightforward. It'll just be a lot of information, but I don't think it will be hard. I really don't think it'll be hard to grasp at all. It'll just be like, it's another thing. It's another AWS service, but like, I understand what that does. Write it down. It's okay. You don't need to memorize it. But just as I'm going through it, just be familiar with it. This part is where I think we'll have some, it'll be fun, and it'll feel like you're doing the coolest stuff, but might be a little bit confusing there. Containers. I love containers, and we might actually, I talked to someone about this, and I was setting up some slides for this. We actually might cut out the second orchestration part and just do a high-level overview of orchestration for the last one, and do 3 courses of containers, because containers are pretty important. So that'd be cool. And then CI/CD, that would be cool. We're actually not doing it with Circle CI anymore. We're actually going to be doing it with GitHub CI or whatever the GitHub continuous integration tool is. But yeah, then we'll get into this last little bit of stuff. So this is like after this lab on Wednesday, we've kind of gotten over the hump of like, all right, we've taught you the basic building blocks, and now we're going to kind of, it's going to feel a little more real world after this. We're really going to be putting it all together once we dive into all this stuff. So it's going to be pretty fun. So hopefully you're looking forward to it. Hopefully looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be pretty cool. I'm going to figure out that Lightsail issue in a little bit. Let's see. Either way it'll work. You go over things like let's encrypt. It will be easier with a server with a public IP address. Yep. Lightsail was acting funny this evening. Yes, Lightsail. So I wouldn't say Lightsail was acting funny. I would say that I don't use Lightsail. So there's probably, I think I made some assumptions about Lightsail that may not be true, specifically about security. It may have been easier for me just to go with an EC2 instance. I know a lot more about AWS's core services. I don't, Lightsail's not really one of AWS's core services. I know a lot more about the rest of their services, so we won't have that problem once we dive into that piece. I do still recommend Lightsail or DigitalOcean Droplets, but there's probably some security that we just don't know about there. So I'll see if I can figure that out. Do we need Lightsail accounts too? I would recommend the very first AWS day, we're going to be signing up for AWS accounts. I'd recommend getting set up with it. Again, you can use the Lightsail server for free, the lowest tier for free for a month. I'd recommend picking one up. You don't need one though. Cool. Yeah, so that's it for tonight. I kept you over last time, and I want to keep you over this time. Thank you for joining. I think I felt like we got through a lot today. I'll definitely incorporate the load balancing, because I think it's really cool to see that load balancing in action into the lab. And yeah, if anyone, I'll stick around for a few minutes if anyone has any extra questions. If not, go enjoy the rest of your evening. It's probably bedtime for most. It's definitely bedtime for me. I'm going to do a few more little things. I'll send out some emails, and then I'm going to bed. I got to work out in the morning. I need to work out in the morning. So yeah, see you all Wednesday. Like I said, I'm going to stick around for just a few minutes in case you have any questions. I'm probably going to start sticking around for 5-10 minutes after each of the streams for questions if you guys have any. If not, no big deal. I'll just sit around and you can just stare at me click around my desktop. If anyone do I have this set up? If anyone wants, I don't know if I put my VS Code, configuration in GitHub. If I didn't, I will, but I actually don't even know if this one's set up the way I like it. But I had a pretty cool VS Code setup. Actually, let's check this out. What do I have in this GitHub? I actually have to move a lot of GitHub stuff over from my personal one to this one. And I saw this class. So at the meetup last week, we did some intro to Linux stuff. I think the plan was to start a project, but I think there was some miscommunication on what we were supposed to start. So we did some intro to Linux stuff. I'm not sure what the plan is going forward with that. I will try to get you that information. But I think actually most of us are going to be gone. Most of us are going to be gone actually this week. We are, even though it's going to be raining for a few days, I think we're all headed down to Miami this week for a little bit of rest and relaxation. So I actually don't know what's going on with the meetup this week. But if you're in the Slack for that meetup, definitely reach out there and find out, because I don't know. I used to contribute a lot more to the meetup, but I'm so busy now with all this other stuff. I had to kind of pull back a little bit, so I don't know what's going on. Repos. Now you guys are getting to see some private stuff. You like my name? I have some cool names for my repos. We're calling this the gospel because, again, for what I'm going to release, I still have to release it. Actually, for the people who are still on here, if you were going to contribute to an open source, basically, actually, let me just show you. I will show you why you are here. Do I have this cloned here? Basically, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to set up an open source learning curriculums site. So just same way how you have learning paths in Team Treehouse, or the same way you have learning paths in Code Academy or something like that. I basically want people to be able to go in, go to a repo, paste in, basically if people who are familiar with familiar with the topic. So let's say someone wants to learn Python or intro to programming or, intro to cloud computing or any of that stuff. They can basically go in and they can create some YAML files, like directories of YAML files. YAML might not be the best option. I'm trying to figure out what the best option is for people to do. But YAML seems like a pretty simple templating thing to use. Basically set up a YAML file and say, hey, here's the name of the unit. So if the first part, if we're doing Python, and let's say we're just going with we're on variables in Python. It's like, all right, this unit is variables, and here is a YouTube video that explains it. Here is a link to official documentation on it. Here's a list of an unlimited number of pertinent links that I think are valuable to you being able to understand this. Also, an audio link for in case some people like to learn through podcasts or through sound. So link for that as well. And basically, all people would have to do is throw these into a repo, throw basically these directories with YAML files into a repo. The application would consume them and create these structured learning paths with progress bars and everything. And so people can contribute to them. If you felt like a video sucked or there's a better video that explains this stuff, you can submit a PR for that. And then it can basically always be up to date. We don't have to wait on a company to come along and to fix that. And so update their videos when things come out. 2, the learning courses could actually be about anything at all. And 3, the information is already out there. This information is already everywhere, and I think this would just be a fun idea for people to be able to aggregate this and curate this information into one place. So I check it out. I mean, I'm really trying to. I'm putting together the documentation now to be able to use it. That's the hardest part. It's ready. It's just the documentation isn't there. But Markdown, yes, Markdown. So it's actually interesting. Those templates would actually get consumed and actually converted into Markdown. But I wasn't sure if Markdown was too complicated for people to. I want as many people as possible to be able to enter things in here. So Markdown is actually a good idea for this. I actually think this is a great idea. Markdown's reasonable. You're right. I think Markdown might be reasonable. I just need to put in a fair amount of checks into the application because I need the format to match a very specific template. YAML is a bit more complicated than Markdown. I don't know if I would agree for normal terms, but for this template is pretty simple. I think YAML is. I thought YAML was cleaner, but talking to more people, I don't think YAML is the cleanest, and I think Markdown is going to be the way to go for this. It's going to be Markdown files for this. So it'll be pretty cool. I think I'm going to finish up this documentation. Let me update some documentation let me change the templates to be Markdown, and that actually might remove one. I could take away, I had to write a little translation layer that would convert the YAML to Markdown. So that'll take away a piece, but that'll be nice. But yeah, I would like as many people to contribute to it as possible. It can be about anything. Obviously, I would like the topics to be, and the tracks to be tech related. But at first, I'm only going to be approving tech related tracks. But if it's something that works, if this is something that people actually like and actually are contributing to, I'll open up to more things. I think there's some opportunities for this to kind of be a breeding ground for anything you want to learn about. But I think it would just be a fun little collecting place to be able to make these things. And again, it's going to have progress. You'll be able to log in, and it'll have progress bars through each of the courses, as they're made, and it'll update accordingly when new courses are added and things like that. So it'll be fun. But yes, I would love for you to submit automotive tracks. I love cars. I'm probably going to submit one as well. But cool. All that is, honestly, it's coming shortly. There's a lot of updates to the channel. To the stream coming along. A lot of updates to some of the other ways I'm going to be trying to interact and get things out there and giving people opportunity to, people were asking me about, hey, what open source projects can I contribute to? I was like, hey, I got one on the way that I think will be fun that you can put in your resume as well. So hopefully that'll be cool. But I am going to head out now. Hopefully you all have a great night. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for the conversation. I look forward to working with y'all on Wednesday. I think it'll be really, really fun. Have a good night, everybody.